Hello, everybody. We are very glad to have you. Thank you for making time to join this conversation today. My name is Cliff Kaplan, and I am the program director at the Hill Country Alliance. And this Lunch with Leaders series is part of a program that the Hill Country Alliance runs with the A.G. Butt Foundation that we call Leading in the Rural Hill Country. My counterpart at the H.E. Butt Foundation is Dana Williams. Do you want to say hi, Dana? That'll do. Dana, wait. Oh, go ahead.
Hello, no, that's good. Hello. I just couldn't get to the unmute fast enough. Right. Thanks, Cliff.
So the purpose of Leading in the Rural Hill Country, our hope with this program and with this Lunch with Leaders series, which is part of that, is to just connect or continue to connect leaders in the most rural parts of the Hill Country. And we take a really broad concept of leaders. It's really anybody who's trying to create change or to address challenges or take advantage of opportunities for and with their community. So that could be business people, it could be local government people, it could be nonprofit people. And so that's all of you, everyone who's on the call, really. I mean, and it can also be students. It's really just anybody who wants to see change in their community and wants to be involved in making that change or addressing challenges that are coming up and addressing them effectively. So we try to connect these local leaders and in doing that, identify what common challenges are, create a space where folks can be sharing resources, sharing information, sharing inspiration, exchanging ideas, etc. And so we try and do that through this Lunch with Leaders series. This is the third Lunch with Leaders that we've done. And so we're still kind of getting the rhythm of it, but I feel really excited about the direction that this series is headed. And we'll be launching a Facebook group that will help serve the same purpose of connecting people, so that this series happens, every quarter. But we want to make sure that there's space that's being held for folks to communicate and exchange ideas, between these Lunch with Leaders events. So I think what we'll do now is in that spirit of connecting with one another, it's been great to see people put a little bit about themselves and what they're up to in the chat, but maybe we'll just go around real quick and we'll try not to take too much time. But just to say, what your name is, where you're calling in from, and if you have an affiliation to a business or a government or a nonprofit that you want to share, we'll just get started with that. From there, we'll turn to the panelists and the panel discussion that we shared out over video link. We'll focus on today's theme, which is about this intergenerational change and younger leaders coming into their communities or coming into leadership in their communities, and how older leaders who are stepping out of those positions can be supportive, and vice versa. And we'll focus on that for a little while, and then we'll just open up to a broader discussion before we wrap up. So that's kind of the game plan for today. So with that, we'll do a real quick round of introductions. And let me shift this so that I can see everybody's faces. Like I said, I'm Cliff Kaplan. I'm with the Hill Country Alliance. We work in 17 counties. I happen to be located in Austin. And I will turn it over to you, Cerrito. You're on mute, Cerrito. Cerrito, there you go.
Took me by surprise. I'm Carol Neiman, also known as Cerrito, from Junction. I'm on the EDC board, the Planning and Zoning Commission there. That's it.
Thanks. You want to pass it to someone else?
Leah.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Leah Cuddyback. I currently work in a joint position with the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment here at Texas State. I'm in San Marcos at the moment, but starting, I guess, next week, I'm leaving this job and heading full-time to Hill Country Alliance. And I've had the pleasure of working with Cliff for the past 3 years. So I'm excited to be more involved in this program in the future.
Thanks, Leah.
I guess for HCA, I manage our online outreach and communications. And when I start full-time, I will be our storytelling and community outreach manager, which sounds really cool. So I'm excited to do that.
Thanks, Leah. We're going to try and keep these intros real brief, and I'm going to send it to Darcy. Go ahead, Darcy.
I'm Darcy Hasty. I serve on the City Council for the City of Bandera, and I work as the Pretrial Services Director in Hondo for Medina County.
Thanks, Darcy. Jim. Jim, you're on mute.
There we go. Old dogs learning new tricks. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Jim Holder, Real County Historical Commission officer, Nueces Canyon Mission Restoration Organization officer, and the Advocacy Committee for the Community Health and Development Center, Uvalde, Texas. Glad to be here today.
Thanks, Jim. Glad to have you. Kayla.
My name is Kayla Talbot. I'm in Rock Springs, Texas. My husband and I own businesses here, and I will also be serving on the city council as of next week, if all goes accordingly.
Congratulations, and thanks for
Thank you.
stepping into that role.
Thank you.
Craig.
Thanks, Cliff. That news was added, and so congrats on not only moving to Rock Springs, but serving on the city council. That's big and quick, so that's awesome. I'm Craig Rotter. I'm with the Texas Rural Leadership Program, which is part of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. We do human capacity building, working with leaders in rural places, and like everybody on this call, trying to make life better and sustaining what's wonderful about rural life in Texas. So good to be with y'all.
Thanks, Craig. Eddie.
I'm Eddie Gentry. I'm the Executive Director of the Bluebonnet Children's Center. It's a nonprofit. We run the CASA program and a forensic interview center, and we cover Medina, Uvalde, and Real counties. And I'm a member of Team Real that we met up in Campwood last night as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Polly. And Polly, you're on mute. I don't know how. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I'm Polly Robinson from Junction. I'm on the EDC board and the tourism board.
Thanks, Polly.
That's all.
Jessica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I'm a project manager for the H.E. Butt Foundation. I work strictly for the community engagement and communications teams, touching all of the many programs that we have here. And I'm really excited to get more involved in the communities surrounding this beautiful land that we have where we run all of our camps.
Thanks, Jessica. Genevieve.
Hi, I'm Genevieve Flores, and I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Hondo.
Thanks, Genevieve. And we have two folks. I'm going to turn to our panelists last. We have two folks calling in from numbers that I don't know. So who is calling in from 210-414-11718? And you're on mute, whoever that is. All right, we will circle back. See if you can get yourself off of mute there. 414-718. And how about calling in from 830-591-9835? Also on mute. We're going to circle back to that one too. Judge, do you want to introduce yourself?
Pull myself off mute. I'm Judge Casper. Been lucky enough to hop around to different communities and learn so much about leadership that's going on, especially these young leaders that are on this panel today. What a joy. I've been the judge here in Sabinal for 3 years now, and participate in several community building opportunities as well, and am eager to learn so much more through this organization.
Thank you. I see that 5919835 took yourself off mute. Who's that?
Betty Jo Bay. I represent Lake United Methodist Church, and we have a tremendous community outreach, not only in Lakey, but in the entire Frio Canyon. area. So I'm glad to be with you all today.
Thank you, Betty Jo. I hope I've gotten your name correct there. I've just
You're
renamed it.
right. You're right.
Excellent. And we still have that 210-414-1718. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and turn to our panelists. I hope everyone got a chance to watch the video that we shared out, this panel discussion that we recorded a few weeks ago with Andrew and Candace and Susan. We were really glad to have them, and it was a really interesting discussion. Thanks, Jessica, for putting the link in the chat again. And of course, that should be in everyone's emails as well. As we get that Facebook set up, we're also going to make these videos available perpetually so that folks can go back and check them out. Candace, you want to introduce yourself real quick? And you're on mute, Candace.
Okay. I'm Candace Morrison. I own Honeybean Coffee and Tea Company, and as of last week, I'm a part owner of South Llano Floral and run the Junction Area Farmers Market, and I'm on the Chamber of Commerce here in Junction.
Thanks, Candace. And Candace told me that actually the Chamber has an important meeting today that's running concurrently with this meeting, and so she won't be able to stay for too long. So we will respect her time, and we'll get right back to her with some questions. Andrew, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Helton. I am the director of Kimball County Library here in Junction, Texas, and I also own my own small technology company.
Thanks, Andrew. And Susan?
I'm Susan Rios. I am the Historic Main Street Manager here in Uvalde, Texas.
Thanks, Susan. So I think it's worth taking the time to do these introductions, personally at least, because again, the whole purpose here is to help build new relationships, new connections across these many rural hill country counties. And so that means hearing one another's voices, seeing one another's faces whenever possible, and getting to know one another that way as we share perspectives and ideas and so forth. So I'm going to turn now to the theme for today, which is about this intergenerational transition of younger folks coming into leadership in their communities, sometimes met with friction by older folks in the community or the older leaders who are sort of involved in leadership institutions, and sometimes met with support and welcoming from those older leaders. So one thing that I noted as I reviewed the video earlier was that in Candace, Andrew, and Susan's case, your ability to lead from the position that you're in your communities is directly tied to your age and the perspective or experience that comes with where you are in your life. So for instance, Candace mentioned just how much effort it takes, how much work it takes to get a farmer's market off the ground and to sustain it. And that a degree of energy is something that a lot of people have when they're younger, but fewer people have as they get older in life, or they have less time as they've started a family or have other responsibilities in their lives. And so there's something that youth can bring into a situation that really requires that kind of imagination, time availability, and energy to get something off the ground. Andrew mentioned that he was almost recruited into his current position in a way because of his familiarity with technology, and that expertise is something that is not as prevalent in his community and in the neighboring communities, which are shifting to become older and older, as I think we probably all know from our experiences in rural communities in Texas. And Susan, you mentioned during the panel discussion that your position as far as age goes allowed you to kind of both relate to some of the old timers as well as new families that are coming into the community, and that you were sort of ideally situated for that reason. So that kind of gets to the importance of having young folks moving into leadership in our communities. But you also each referenced pushback or a little bit of friction that you've gotten here or there, maybe less so from you, Susan, but certainly we heard that from Andrew and from Candace. I guess my question, and whether that's because it's associated with change or we've never had this kind of activity or this approach to a problem in our community. Andrew, you mentioned, for instance, shifting the focus of the library away from the collection and towards using the space creatively, which meant opening up space by getting rid of some of the collection, and how some folks who are, still relying on the library for information and for books as opposed to turning to the internet for those resources, were struggling with that. I guess my question to each of you is, when you think of, just like younger leaders are a resource in our communities, so are older leaders. They're of course a great resource to our communities because they have so much experience and wisdom and connections to draw from. And so my question, I guess, is what would you most like to receive? I guess I'll ask you first, Candace. What kind of support, guidance, assistance would you most like to receive from some of the older folks in your community, whether they're on city council or elsewhere in the community?
I would love to receive time. I would love to be able to sit down with some of our city council members or our city secretary and problem solve some of the problems we have with the venue surrounding the farmers market. I'd love to sit down with members who've been in this city for a very long time and know how it works to talk about business propositions and real estate and how we change our dying, failing downtown strip. And there's so many things I would love to talk about if they were open to sitting down. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that I know there's such a wealth of information, and we have this new tide that's coming into Junction and that's changing things and growing and building. And I would love to sit down with them and figure out how we integrate and honor and respect our past while building our new future. And I would just love time. And that's something I haven't been able to get yet.
Thanks, Candace. Susan or Andrew, do either of you want to speak to the same question? And then we're going to open it up to anybody else who has questions. So if you have a question, get ready to just raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we'll kind of open up the conversation that way. Go ahead, Andrew or Susan.
I want to say I echo that from Candace. Is sometimes you get the feeling like you're not worth the time of day, or they're too busy to have these conversations. I'll give you an example. As I was down talking with my boss recently about an issue here at the library, and I love him to death and we're really good friends, but his response was, be the boss, I'm going to stay out of the way. And on the one hand, I'm like, well, I like the freedom that entails. But on the other hand, the reason I had gone to him in the first place is because I was actually looking for advice on how to handle this situation, because I didn't know how to handle it. And so it's sometimes you want people to share their wisdom and knowledge that they've gained over a lifetime with you. And yeah, there's something to be said for learning it on your own. But to me, part of being a good leader is being able to be proactive in learning and asking for help when you need help. And so sometimes if you feel like you get shot down every time you ask for help, it makes it really hard to want to go back and ask again. And so I'd say from a mentorship standpoint, I'm not necessarily looking for, an absolute answer on everything, but sometimes just having somebody ask me questions to help facilitate and guide me towards an answer or solution on something could be really, really helpful, because I'll be the first to say I don't know everything. I'm far from it. And I'm learning about how not to do things all the time. And so if there's people in the generation or two above me that are willing to sit down and instruct and just ask questions and encourage, I'm all for that. So absolutely.
Thanks, Andrew. Susan, did you want to speak to that?
I think what Candace and you were both pointing out, I mean, time is always of the essence. And we talked about earlier that most of us in our communities are wearing a lot of different hats. So getting on someone's time schedule can be a little complicated. But I've always lived by a philosophy of you don't know what you don't know. So I've at least been very lucky that I guess I'm a little tenacious when it comes to getting people's guidance and wisdom. So if they don't answer me the first time, I just find another way to ask the question or get their attention. Because I know that the older or more experienced individuals in our community have that wealth of knowledge. And so once I explain, like, I don't know what I don't know, I'm not originally from here. So if you have guidance or information, please share it with me. And I'm also very careful to ask, I don't want your criticism, I want your feedback. And kind of a lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference? Well, feedback has a solution. Feedback has a different perspective where criticism is just a no in a lot of ways. So that is the benefit of like Candace really brought that up. Sometimes getting on a city council or mayor's agenda can be very difficult. And sharing whatever new idea or new perspective you have for your community is generally probably the hardest thing to convey on that time schedule. So, yeah, just to repeat a lot of that, time is to be on someone's agenda, because if you don't get that, you tend to feel like what you're offering may not be important. That I think is a very personalized perspective we tend to have. So it's oftentimes conveying to that person, this is very important and here is why. Not that it's just important to me personally, but this has an economic impact. This could have a growth and tax-based impact. So let's get on your calendar. Usually if you can explain it to them monetarily, then all of a sudden people listen.
Thanks, Susan. Speaking of wearing many hats, I know that Candace is on the board of the chamber and she's going to have to run in just a moment to get to the chamber meeting in Junction. So did anybody have any questions that they wanted to put specifically to Candace? Let's get those first. If anybody has some, I know that there's a coffee shop connection between Kayla and Candace. Are y'all already in touch?
I don't think so, but I'd love to be.
I'm really excited you're here, honestly. I'm like fangirling. I've heard so much about you. So it's nice to meet you. I don't have any questions yet, but I'm glad to be connected.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that contact info is shared so that y'all can pick up. Does anybody have any general questions for this panel or comments or reactions to what you've heard so far in the video? And Candace, we'll just let you slip out whenever you need to, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, I've got something. Oops.
Go ahead, Carol.
One of the things that occurred to me in the time thing and the sharing thing is that what I notice, and I don't know other people do, that in fact, there are not very many opportunities for older people, or they're not structured opportunities for older people who have skills, who have trades, who have insights, who have a certain life experience. There are not actually very many people for them to, opportunities for them to share that. It tends to be, so if you have this position, or if you're on this board, or if you're on the city council, or one of those things, then you have, that becomes your platform, your stage in a way. And it just occurred to me that maybe if there were more of those, I keep thinking of this idea for the library, the living books idea, Andrew, that you go check out a person rather than a book, and they have a story to tell. Sometimes I wonder if we had more of those kinds of things where older people who are feeling a little like, oh my God, I'm not relevant anymore, I'm getting shoved out or whatever, for them to actually give what they know their platform, their stage, and they define what that is. If they might not be a little easier to talk to, work with, and find more time if they knew that people were interested.
I have a question. We're going to kind of just open it up to just a more of a roundtable kind of discussion. So I actually have a question for really anybody on the call who's involved in a local organization, as everyone is. Do your organizations, or do you think about mentorship and sort of passing the torch and a new generation of folks coming into your organization in the work that you do? Does anybody want to speak to that, whether it's from the Junction EDC or out in Bandera or in Rock Springs? Go ahead, Darcy.
So I'm also involved in the Lions Club locally, and we do a lot of mentoring. So, I mean, that helps. We've got a lot of youngsters that come when they're involved in like the Shotgun Club and stuff like that, or 4-H, and they'll come and volunteer with us. And then they end up begging their parents to come back and want to do more. We'll do the food giveaways when we have the massive food distributions. When COVID first started, we started doing those, and they continue today. It's fortunate that we can do it, and it's unfortunate that many people still need the food, but it's great that we also have teens and stuff that want to come help. So we do mentoring in that kind of way, where we get to talk to the kids and get them involved where they want to do that stuff, and where they can ask us questions. Me being on city council, they think that's really cool, and so they'll ask me different questions about that. Or even my kind of job, they find out that it's law enforcement-esque, and so they'll ask me stuff about that. And then we have people from Warriors Heart that come out and volunteer too. So it's a treatment facility for drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and PTSD. And so those warriors will be out there, and they can talk to the kids, and they get to talk to us too and ask us questions, and we get to ask them questions and kind of hang out and all volunteer together. So we get to mentor in different ways. So it's kind of a great experience to do different stuff like that, mentoring as well. So
Thanks, Darcy.
I'll share if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I actually do also is I'm a vision and goals coach. So I work with people all about what it is that they really, really want to do in their future, and how to clarify the goals they need to clarify to get there. And I find that this is something many people in my town specifically are so thrown off by, because they've not really thought about the possibilities that are out there for them being in such an isolated area. And maybe they haven't ever been asked, what are your big dreams? And what could you do to make them happen now? And so I've been putting on vision and goals events at my gym, which is kind of random, but it's been really cool to see some of these people's visions come to life over the last couple of years of being here. And I do believe that when we ask others about the vision they have for their life, and when we are able to help come alongside them and show them what's possible, that not only are we helping them in their own private life, but they're actually more equipped with the confidence to go and create their own things in the town too. And so since we've lived here, we've actually seen so many of our friends start businesses or do events or projects, or, just really believe that they could do something innovative and different here, even though it may not be normal. And so even though sometimes I am looked at like the weird girl who is like putting on these different events that they've never heard of, I've just seen so much come from that. And so I really love what you're sharing on the mentorship. It's really cool when we can see, young kids, and then also adults, when we get to ask them, what are your visions for your life, and how could we actually make them reality now? Thank you.
Thanks, Kayla.
What kind of events have you put on, Kayla?
They're actually called Vision and Goals Nights. So I have an event that is something I do with a lot of my clients called Awakening Possibility. And so we really just connect and we visualize, like we do a whole guided meditation about their life and their future, clarifying what they want versus what they don't want. And really also this concept of networking with other people who also want to create the life they've always wanted to live, so that we don't accidentally live a life we didn't really mean to, if you know what I mean. So that's what we do. We eat food and we talk about vision and goals. Thank you.
Thanks, Kayla. I wonder if Polly or if Carol on the Junction EDC wants to speak to how that body, have you all thought about trying to recruit younger folks onto the EDC? Is that something that you're intentional about? Polly?
Oh, okay. We've tried diligently to recruit younger people to be on our board. We have not been very successful. We serve 2-year terms. So every time a term limit is approaching, we advertise in the paper. I personally grew up in Junction. I had a 30-year career away from Junction, and I moved back after I retired. So I know people I grew up with. I do not know many people in the 20, 30, 40 age group. So I don't personally reach out to those because I don't even know who they are. We do try to connect with some of them and try to recruit them. On occasion, we've had a few people that have come on the board and they didn't last. They come to a couple of meetings and they go, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. I'm out of here. So, I don't know what their expectations are, but we do not have any kind of formal mentoring program other than, just trying to get people on the board so we can share our experiences with them and get their ideas about how to revitalize Junction. Another thing we've tried to do in terms of just training people is we partner up with Angelo State University in some outreach training that they have, and we have had some people come on site and do some training, and we try to get all people in the community involved in that. But we really don't have any kind of formal programs. Maybe it's something we should think about, but just getting people on the board, we've not been very successful at. Carol, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, that's true. We haven't been, and I totally understand that it took me a year to realize that, in fact, being on this board is not going to be someplace where I can make something happen and we go for it next month. It's slow, and requires consulting with all kinds of other things. I mean, I think that in a way, it works better in our position to find ways to encourage younger people to get more involved in the community, to pursue their dreams, to expand their business. We serve better as a kind of resource for younger people than we do just because of the nature of the board and the decisions it makes, and what its limitations, the limitations of what we can do. We do better when we try and find young people to support rather than trying to put them on the board.
Thanks, Carol. Andrew, you mentioned that the board at the library has gotten younger since your tenure as the director of the library. Can you speak to how and why that's happened and what it's meant for the library?
I would say probably a big part of the reason we've been able to recruit younger people was that we focused intentionally on engaging children and young families from a program perspective. And so a lot of the, I'm gonna say moms, because my entire board is female. So they liked what we were doing, and they saw that we were trying our best to find, things that they needed, things that would appeal to their kids, to them as families, and they wanted to start participating in that. And so I think that, our initiative kind of sold itself to them. And so it made it a little bit of an easier sell to recruit a few of them to our board. The other thing I think that helps is I'm a pretty matter-of-fact person. So when it comes to running a board meeting, I try to keep them as short as possible. So and because I recognize if you're gonna have young people involved, you can't have long meetings. Okay, that's the quick way to run them off. I'm just being honest. Like, that's one of the reasons I'm very, very cautious with ever saying I'm going to join some sort of board or organization, is because I've got a million things going on. And I want short meetings. And so I think that's one of the things with younger generations, right? We've all read the joke before, like, okay, we just had we had a meeting and it could have been an email. It's sort of that sort of joke is like, keeping meetings really short. Like, I mean, I've had some on board meetings be like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And so recognizing that some of these young moms and young people that are involved on our board, I mean, they have other commitments they have to go to. They have jobs. And so they may be coming to this board meeting on their lunch hour or something like that. And so finding ways to work around those issues has been helpful as well. So.
Thanks, Andrew. Genevieve, I saw you take yourself put yourself onto the video. Was that because you had something you wanted to say? You're on mute, by the way.
I don't know what I did to cause me to go blank, but I can't see y'all. Can y'all still see me?
We can, yeah.
No, I just found it really interesting, the whole thing. And I don't have any questions. I just think it's really interesting on some of the challenges the young man is faced with. But, I am not as young as they are, but I have felt the same way. And I was born and raised in Hondo, but just coming because I came from corporate America, it's been challenging to bring the different ideas and the open concept to it's challenging in general. And I just think I really I just want to express that I'm really impressed on how he's handling the entire situation. He is really, really a trooper and such a professional to handle it the way he is. I have actually learned so much from watching that video. So anyway, just kudos to you guys.
Thanks, Genevieve. Leah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a young person that jumped onto a board, not really knowing what to expect, I know somebody mentioned that earlier. I didn't last much beyond my first year either. I think engaging folks, like Andrew just said, and giving them opportunities is really important, and keeping things kind of shorter or more open to folks having a busier schedule than like a retired schedule. I think, if you're having meetings in the middle of a weekday, you may want to think like, oh, folks that work may not be able to make that meeting. Those kind of policies that work for everybody else on the board will continue to not work for people that aren't on the board. So that's one thing. I also think, if you want a young person on your board, at least in my experience, they may not know what to expect. So that board mentorship is really important. And being honest with what you want, whether you want folks that are going to come in with a bunch of ideas, if that's what you say, stick with it. Don't shoot down all their ideas. I think everybody in whatever experience in life you're at has lived and learned something. And maybe your experience will tell you, oh no, that's a terrible idea, but don't hit somebody that's new to the group with that negativity right off the bat, because maybe it didn't work for you, but maybe that was 10 years ago. And maybe it won't work, and maybe you're right. But I think giving folks that opportunity to grow and talk and like engage, if you don't do that, they're not going to stick around.
Leah, were you asked to join the board that you're on?
Yeah, and actually, I've served on 2 boards. One I did for a little over a year, and then I dropped off of that one. The other I've been able to do for the past year. I'm on the Wimberley Parks and Recreation Board, and that has just been far more engaging for my personal schedule. And having kind of like more of a structure to it that I knew what to step into. I kind of wish that had been the first board I served on. The first board I served on was awesome too. It just wasn't quite right for me, and I didn't know what to expect.
Thanks, Leah.
How did your board member find you? I'm sorry to jump in on this, but she's so interesting. I mean, how did they find you to ask you to jump on?
Well, I'm pretty involved in the environmental stuff in this area. Cliff knows. It might have been like a Hill Country Alliance event when I was still kind of looking for a job a few years back. And I think, you know, one thing about folks that are in their early 20s, they're not going to be, if they're like driven and running around and making connections, chances are they might be free for a board service position one day, and a month later they may have a job. And so people's flexibility changes. So I guess that's just something, you know, I really enjoyed both boards that I've served on, but I did see a difference in kind of, you know, what mentorship looked like. And I've kept in touch with some of the folks from that board, and there's nothing bad there. It just wasn't, you know, I think my part of advice would be, if you're trying to recruit younger people, be more flexible with scheduling and with their ideas. And just because you want young people on your board, you have to have policies in place that will keep them there.
If it's okay, I kind of want to speak to that, because I feel like I straddle the age fence a little bit. I'm I guess what you classify as a Gen X, being in my mid 40s. So I constantly hear both sides of the spectrum, you know, what Carol and Polly are talking about, what Leah is talking about. So I have found that in Uvalde, I actually answer to 2 boards and city council. So I have a lot of boards, and of course that's not including the things like Rotary and all this other stuff I'm involved in. So speaking to like Polly and Carol's concern about how do you recruit younger people, and sort of our experience leads exactly into what Leah's saying. You know, it was having to be, first of all, how do I get the information out there? The newspaper was great, but the thing I had to remind some of my older board members is that younger people aren't reading newspapers. That's not a reality anymore. So you had to make sure that you were relevant on whatever social media outlets were speaking to the generation, because even Facebook is starting to fade away for, you know, certain age demographics. So yeah, I'm gonna have to learn how to use TikTok. That's like my next thing I have to figure out how to do. But that was the deal. But when I got younger people, just like Leah was saying, there were concerns where their ideas weren't being embraced. They weren't being respected. And then that was a communication challenge for myself. I can ask a lot of questions. So if somebody would bring me an idea, like one of my younger 22-year-old board members would bring me an idea, I'd be like, okay, so tell me what that looks like. How much is this going to cost? And how many volunteers do you need? And what's the structure? And so I realized that I was getting feedback saying, you're being negative, you're shooting me down. I'm like, no, I love the idea, but because I have to be in charge of this program, I have to be able to take to the people who give us the money all of these answers, and I need you to share your vision. So yeah, downtown sound system, for example, that's a great idea, but how much does that cost? Where do I go to get that? What's the liability? Who's going to be in charge of it? You know, and so I realized that, oh, I have to completely change how I relay that information to the younger board members, and then I have to reprocess that information to compute it to maybe older city council members. So that is the constant challenge of being in a leadership position, is really understanding how do I communicate, whether it's verbally, non-verbally, electronically, in media, or I'm not going to recruit those people, and then I'm not going to retain them if I can't be flexible and figure out that communication piece. So it is a constant balancing, fence riding act, and it is forever a question and learning process. And if you're not open to that, you will not succeed. it seems to be that simple.
Thanks, Susan. I'm gonna, this is not a business meeting like a board meeting where there's a certain number of tasks that we need to get to and then we can wrap it up. The whole purpose of this meeting is to spend time together, to get to know one another, to hear each other's perspectives. And so expediency is appropriate for some kinds of meetings. This is not exactly one of those, in my opinion. But that being said, we are we set a goal for ourselves to wrap at 12:45, which maybe was not realistic to begin with. But as we're getting to the end of the hour, we should start looking to wrap up. So I'll just say a few things, and then I'll hand it over to Susan and Andrew in case there's any closing remarks that either of you want to make. If you feel like you said what you had to say, that's fine too, and we can open up for in case anyone else has something that they would like to close with. But just a couple things. One is that our team working on this Leading in the Rural Hill Country, which by the way also features a steering committee, and Carol serves on that steering committee, and so does the judge and Judge Casburn and Craig Rotter and Genevieve Flores all serve on that steering committee. Some of us or someone at the H.E. Butt Foundation or Hill Country Alliance might follow up with anyone who's on this call just to get some feedback as we're really still starting to get this program underway and this Lunch with Leaders series underway. We might follow up just for some additional feedback. If you have feedback that you want to share, please reach back out to us anytime. I'll put my info in the chat so that folks can reach me. And our next Lunch with Leaders is scheduled for September 7th at noon. The topic has yet to be determined. If you want to suggest a topic, that's another good reason to email me or get in touch with Dana or any of the folks that I mentioned from the steering committee, and they can pass that to us as well. So with that, so like I said, we may be following up with you for some additional feedback. You're always welcome to reach out to us. The whole idea is to just create stronger bonds and connections and to really just create a community of folks leading across the rural hill country that is supporting one another. So however you want to contribute to that is very welcome. With that, I'll just turn first to Susan and Andrew and see if there's anything that you all wanted to say in closing, and then we can really wrap up. Susan.
Okay, I'll go first. I didn't know. Okay. First, I want to say thank you everyone for your time and patience. Second, I want to say that rural small town life is so cool and it is ripe for change and growth, and change is not a scary thing. I'm not talking about taking everybody's beloved projects and buildings and events and change and undoing them. That's never what I mean by change, but they're positive growth, and there is room for everyone of all generations. In fact, that is paramount and key to having a successful community in your civic and business world. And I hope that everyone is on board. It sounds like you wouldn't be here if you weren't. And I just want to say, if anyone is interested in economic and downtown development, I am free for questions, answers, what's worked really well in Uvalde, what's been a challenge, and I reciprocate that same information. So hopefully y'all continue to foster and grow everyone of all ages for your communities.
Thanks, Susan. Andrew?
Yeah, I guess as I was thinking about sort of an underlying theme that I heard from multiple people, is just having intentionality in everything we do. And the thing that came to mind for me was being intentional to listen, and that's kind of what we're doing here today, is we're listening to each other's thoughts, ideas, suggestions, and I'd say listening is a bit of a lost art in our culture today. Everybody seems so ready to say what their opinion is, but sometimes maybe we need to shut the mouth and listen with our two ears, and we really open ourselves up to learning things and hearing other people's sides of things. And that's, I think, a big part of where innovation happens is listening, and that allows you to see the problems that exist and then hopefully to come up with solutions. So that was my takeaway from today. And I appreciate everybody being here. It was a great conversation.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Judge, I saw you take yourself off mute. Final thought?
I agree and echo what Andrew just said and what Susan said as well, that what I took away from it was we need to find those opportunities to ask, open our eyes to young people in our communities, find those opportunities and find those that are exhibiting the qualities that we're looking for. And then, like Andrew said, listen to them, and we learn from them, as Susan said, ask questions, but maybe couch it in a non-negative way, or in a way that doesn't seem intimidating to them, and try to implement even a portion of their ideas to keep them engaged. So I loved having this conversation with the three of them and hearing their perspectives. But two, another thing that wasn't even brought up was just generational or lifespan psychology. I don't know if y'all ever have taken that course in college, or Leah probably has just exited that, but with each 10 years of life, we are all turning a different page of our books, completing a new chapter, etc. And leadership tends to lean toward the older folks, because it's just the lot of life at the time. But anyway, I don't want to digress into all of that, but just thinking in that direction. You guys are stellar, and I took away so much from this. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ditch. Well, with that, I just want to say thanks again to everybody for making time and for sharing in this conversation. I hope that you'll stay involved with our Leading in the Rural Hill Country program, or it's really a community that we're trying to create here and foster. So I hope that you'll stay plugged in. We'll follow up with more information by email, and may get in touch for some additional feedback. I want to thank Dana and Jessica at the H.E. Butt Foundation for your partnership and for all the behind the scenes work to make this series possible. And I want to thank our panelists again, Susan and Andrew and Candace, who had to step out for her chamber meeting. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. And I was going to put my info in the chat. I'm doing that now. And we'll see you next time. The next Lunch with Leaders is on September 7th at noon, and we will get that out by email and social media too. Craig, you took yourself off mute?
Yeah, thanks, Cliff. It was great to meet folks, and what a great seminar today. So appreciate being able to be on it. And Andrew, what he said about listening, so valuable. And so it was nice just to sit back and listen today.
Thanks, Greg. All right, y'all. Everybody have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Cliff.
See you, Cliff.